Hello, Midlife Nerded here. It's that time of year when the veil between worlds starts to thin, and I'm going to talk to you about how a horror film, made in 1978, can still scare the pants off of me, and is a masterclass in thrills and chills. I am, of course, talking about John Carpenter's 1978 movie, Halloween. Slashers have never really been my thing, and whilst I appreciate the original Friday the 13th, I'm really not into this blood, gore, most inventive way to kill someone, death fest style of horror movie. I do, however, genuinely view Halloween as one of the all-time great scary movies, which is surprising considering it's nearly as old as me, and will celebrate its 44th birthday on the 25th of October 2022. This is because it's more chiller thriller than hacker slasher. There is virtually no blood throughout its hour and 30-minute runtime, with most of the violence occurring off-screen. There's a very human boogeyman who hides in the shadows, rather than the now modern masked psychopaths and Hollywood's obsession with coming up with ever more inventive gory deaths, and hugely disturbing backstories for these characters. Yet this film still manages to be genuinely terrifying. Why does it scare us so much? How does it achieve to be both scary yet blood splatter free at the same time? Halloween was said by Carpenter to be inspired in large part from the 1974 film Black Christmas, also known as The Stranger in the House, one of the original sorority slasher films and probably the first to use the killer-stalker point of view. A Canadian horror movie with a tiny budget that went on to be the highest-grossing independent Canadian film of all time. If you've never seen it, it is definitely still worth a watch, and even now is decidedly creepy. I warn you, however, that the remakes, your scare score may vary. Carpenter's Fright Fest, meanwhile, became the most successful and profitable global independent horror movie of all time, grossing a whopping $70 million, which in today's money would be around $330 million, and does not take into consideration the VHS rental market of the 1980s. In fact, not only is it the most successful horror movie, it is also the most successful franchise, now topping around $750 million over 12 movies. Although in terms of the sequels and various reboots, again, your scariness score may vary. This is all a phenomenal achievement when you consider it was created by a bunch of kids, with John Carpenter, fresh-faced straight out of UCLA, who then teamed up with Debra Hill, on a $300k budget, based on the somewhat under-inspiring studio exec's idea of a psychopath killing off babysitters on Halloween. Everything from John Carpenter's wonderful score, originally based on a bongo 4/5 rhythm taught by his music teacher Dad, to the pick them off killer POV, and even Jamie's performance has become iconic and oft copied yet seldom mastered. The instantly recognisable work of art gracing the original one-sheet was brought to haunting life by artist-illustrator Robert Gleason. Up until this point, Gleason's work had been more in the album cover and music range, and I just want to point out a little detail that is a definite once-you-see-it moment. Yes, the knuckles on the hand hide a worm-covered screaming face. The original artwork for the poster sold for $83,000 in 2016. But let's continue the analysis a little bit, and there will be huge spoilers. On a cold Halloween night in 1963, 6-year-old Michael Myers brutally murders his 17-year-old sister Judith. It's here that we get all of the elements that actually make up the rest of the movie. Killer point of view, check. Knife visual, check. Heavy breathing, check. Bit of gratuitous nudity, check. All made the more shocking by the innocuous clown costume and sweet face revealed underneath. Although I do wonder if this is where the original killer clowns came from. Having checked my notes, I think this may even have influenced Stephen King and It, released in '84, but this is just a theory. Michael Myers is then interred for 15 years in a high-security sanatorium. We cut to Dr. Samuel Loomis, played by Donald Pleasence, the only really big name in terms of casting, in the car with a chain-smoking nurse, his colleague, Marion Chambers. We get our first bit of foreshadowing. Please note the red matchbooks, there may be a test later, and it's a sort of stormy night. The dialogue shows how Donald's character, the psychiatrist, wants Michael locked away for good, believing he is evil. Myers, meanwhile, has other plans and steals the car and escapes Smith's Grove Sanitarium. If you look really carefully, you can see the wrench used to smash the window. Remember, this classic did so on a budget of $300k, but the setup of the shot is great. He then returns to his quiet hometown of Haddonfield, Illinois, where he looks for his next victims. Carpenter is uncannily skilled at the use of foregrounds in his compositions. The camera constantly throughout the movie establishes the situation, pans to one side or the other, with something creepy often looming up in the foreground, and just as often not, creating a great sense of unease. One of the primary focuses in this movie is ordinary everyday people. Nobody's supposed to be the star and have a big scene and win an Academy Award. The performances are all the more absorbing because of that. Jamie Lee Curtis' character Laurie Strode is all the more likeable for that, with a relatable set of high school girlfriends who all seem like real people. Debra Hill actually wrote their dialogue, and it shows. Another element that adds is the lack of information on the killer himself. Michael Myers is evil. He's psychotic. He kills people. And on Halloween, he's gone back to his small town roots. But we know nothing else about him. We barely even see his face. And that's what makes him frightening. If anything, one can read this as an allegory for the disappointing truth that there is evil in the world, and sometimes bad things happen to good people. All of this wrapped in a well-made and entertaining package. So on Halloween, Michael sees high school student Laurie Strode drop off a key at the long-abandoned Myers house that her father is trying to sell. What follows are some lovely set pieces and shots where Michael is basically lurking throughout the day, always somewhere in her peripheral vision. There 1 minute and gone the next. To be fair, Laurie does notice him stalking her, but her friends Annie Brackett and Linda van der Klock dismiss her concerns. Loomis, meanwhile, is on the trail of Michael, and remember that matchbox? This is a lovely little scene before Loomis even arrives in Haddonfield. The panning to the dead body in the long grass is very well done. I could sit here and talk to you about use of foreground and background, or how clever they are and make every single cent count, but I don't need to. This is a classic, one of those rare things that will always stand on its own. Donald Pleasence, as the most experienced and well-known actor on the film, and the reason that you see his name pretty much after John Carpenters in the title sequences, was pretty much rat-arsed, newt-faced, or in his cups, in every single scene he does. Even so, and though once you know you can absolutely tell, he still puts in a stellar performance. The use of foreground, distance and conversely obscured close-up shots all heighten the tension. Carpenter really does a wonderful job throughout in the use of light and shade, and also the foreshadowing. We have the use of the term boogeyman, which carries right the way through from the initial boogeyman bullying scene, with the use of a pumpkin made all the more scary because this was filmed in spring, not autumn, and they had precisely 3 pumpkins. The poor little boy actor had to get it right, to Michael being inside the house in the closing third.
Killed him.
You can't kill the boogeyman.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
On until the final showdown with Laurie in the final third of the movie. There's the now puritanical teen trope, get naughty, get dead, born out from the first scene through to the deaths of the other sexy teens. The least scariest ghost costume in the world becomes the most scariest ghost in the world. And it's quite easy to criticise this movie in a modern world and say, why aren't they locking their doors? Well, this is small town America where the babysitters are all within spitting distance of each other, and probably the worst crime is someone graffitiing a knob on something. This movie is great horror. It features evil, which is all the more evil for the lack of boring exposition on the main villain. How he wasn't allowed a puppy, or someone had a particular microaggression, or perhaps he wasn't allowed to express himself. And then conversely, we have the reverse of a Mary Sue in Laurie. Quick-witted, kind and warm. She's not pulling off backflips, and she's just trying to protect both herself and the children in her care. We also have the killer twist right at the end, after Loomis shoots him 6 times with Myers seemingly disappearing into the night. I have 1,000 more fun facts and nerdy bits of info if you care to ask. This is one of my favourites, something I've watched again over and over and over. It's a chiller thriller with beautiful writing, a killer cast, a concise plot, and in Carpenter's early directorial style, nothing wasted. If it's been a few years since you've seen it, I highly recommend giving it another go this Halloween. Thanks very much for listening. I've been Midlife Nerded, and as always, so that the YouTube algorithm knows I exist, please press that like button, boop the bell button, and subscribe for more content.